I sat in my car outside the house for a long time that evening, staring at the soft glow of the lights inside. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white as I tried to silence the storm in my head. Amelia had been distant, but the way she angled her phone away, the hushed way she spoke, the lack of warmth in her greeting, it all pointed to something I didn't want to believe. I took a deep breath and stepped out. The air was cool, crisp, yet it did nothing to calm the heat burning inside my chest. Inside, the house felt different. It wasn't just my imagination. The space I once called home now carried an unsettling stillness, like something invisible lurked in the shadows. Amelia was in the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of wine, acting as if everything was perfectly normal. "Long day?" I asked, watching her closely. She didn't turn around. "Yeah, work was exhausting." Another lie. I knew her work schedule by heart. She hadn't stayed late a single night in years. Something in her voice lacked sincerity, as if she were reciting a script. My gut twisted, but I forced a casual tone. "Thinking about taking some time off," I said. "Maybe a weekend trip. Just us." For the first time, she hesitated. Her fingers tightened around the wine glass, shoulders stiffening before she forced a small smile. "That sounds nice," she murmured, but her words carried no excitement. I studied her, my heart sinking deeper. "You don't seem thrilled." She finally turned, eyes flickering with something unreadable. "I'm just tired." She wasn't just tired. She was hiding something. I didn't press further, though every part of me wanted to. Instead, I nodded, pretending I believed her. But as I watched her take a slow sip of wine, avoiding my gaze, I made a silent decision. I would find out the truth. That night she fell asleep before me, curled away, leaving a cold gap between us. The distance had never felt greater. I stared at the ceiling, mind racing. Memories flashed. Our wedding day, the nights we spent laughing in bed, the mornings she kissed me half asleep. Was it all a lie? At some point, exhaustion won, pulling me under. But when I woke up in the middle of the night, the bed was empty. I blinked, disoriented. Then faint whispers drifted from the hallway. Quietly, I slipped out of bed, heart pounding as I followed the sound. There she was, standing in the dim light of the living room, phone pressed to her ear, voice hushed. "I miss you too," she whispered, unaware that I was right there. My blood ran cold. I barely slept that night. Amelia had crept back into bed hours later, completely unaware that I had stood in the darkness, listening. Her voice had been soft, full of something I hadn't heard in a long time. Excitement. It haunted me. Morning came, but nothing felt normal. I watched her move around the kitchen, making coffee, humming lightly, acting as if last night had never happened. Meanwhile, my mind replayed every word, every whisper, every breath she had given to another man. She was cheating. The realization crushed me. I forced myself to speak, though my throat felt raw. "You're up early." She glanced at me, offering a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Couldn't sleep well." Lies. She slept fine. I was the one who had spent the night drowning in thoughts, staring at the ceiling while she lay beside me, oblivious to the wreckage she had caused. "I was thinking," I said, watching her reaction. "Maybe we should go away for a bit. Just the two of us." For a second, something flickered in her expression. Guilt, hesitation, but just as quickly, it was gone. "That sounds nice," she said, but the lack of enthusiasm screamed louder than her words. I sipped my coffee, hiding my disgust. Later, when she left for work, I waited exactly 5 minutes before grabbing my keys. There was no office meeting, no extra shifts. She was going to see him. I followed her. The drive wasn't long. She took the same route I had seen countless times, but instead of heading downtown, she veered off course. My grip on the steering wheel tightened. Where was she going? When she finally pulled into a parking lot, my heart nearly stopped. A hotel. I parked a safe distance away, hands shaking. My worst fears had come true, laid bare in front of me. My wife, the woman I had built a life with, was stepping out of her car, fixing her hair, adjusting her dress, all for someone else. Then I saw him, tall, confident, grinning as he approached her like she belonged to him. And when she wrapped her arms around him, that was the moment something inside me snapped. I wasn't the man she wanted anymore, but I would be the man she regretted betraying. I sat in the darkness, waiting. The weight of betrayal pressed against my chest, suffocating, relentless. The front door creaked open, and her footsteps echoed through the quiet house. She had no idea what awaited her. She moved through the living room, her silhouette outlined by the streetlights spilling through the window. I let the silence stretch, let the tension coil around us like a noose. When she finally saw me sitting in the armchair, she froze. "You're back late," I said, voice steady. Her breath hitched. I told you I was with Claire." I exhaled, shaking my head. "Don't lie, Amelia." She stiffened. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in her eyes. "What are you talking about?" I leaned forward, elbows resting on my knees. "I know where you were." Panic crept onto her face, but she fought to keep her composure. "I don't know what—" "Stop." My voice was sharper than I intended. "I saw you." Her mouth opened, but no words came. "I followed you, Amelia," I continued, my tone eerily calm. "Watched you walk into that hotel, saw you wrap your arms around him. Tell me, how long? How many times have you gone to him while I was here, waiting for you?" She swallowed, but then, instead of breaking down, instead of apologizing, she straightened. Something changed in her eyes. Defiance. "So what if I did?" She shot back, her voice laced with something that sent my blood boiling. "What do you want me to say? That I regret it? That it was a mistake?" She scoffed. "I don't." I stared at her, disbelief crashing into me like a tidal wave. "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She crossed her arms, lips curling into a smirk that made me sick. "You want the truth? Fine. I tried another man and he's just amazing." The words cut deeper than any knife ever could. "I feel alive with him," she continued, her tone almost smug. "He gives me things you never could. Excitement, passion, a thrill." My hands curled into fists. "And what about love, Amelia?" She hesitated. It was brief, but I saw it. Then she laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "Love? Love isn't enough. Love doesn't make me feel like that." A cold realization settled over me. She hadn't just cheated. She had chosen this. She had walked into that hotel room knowing exactly what she was doing. And worse, she had no remorse. I rose to my feet, towering over her. "Then leave." That wiped the smirk off her face. "What?" "You heard me," I said, voice eerily calm. "Pack your things and get out." Her brows furrowed. "You can't just—" "I can," I cut in, "and I am." She stared at me, disbelief morphing into anger. "You think you can just throw me out?" I took a step closer, my voice ice cold. "You already left, Amelia. The moment you let him touch you, the moment you decided I wasn't enough. You left this marriage." Her jaw clenched, and for a second, I thought she might try to argue. But instead, she let out a frustrated breath, turned on her heel, and stormed upstairs. I listened as drawers slammed, as she yanked her belongings from the closet. And I felt nothing. No sadness, no regret. Just an empty, quiet kind of rage. She thought she had broken me, but she had no idea who she had just unleashed. The house was silent. Not the peaceful kind, but the eerie, hollow stillness of something that had once been full of life and now stood abandoned. Amelia had left hours ago, dragging her suitcase behind her, slamming the door as if she wanted to have the last word. But she didn't. I did. As I stood in the living room, the weight of everything settled over me. The betrayal, the lies, the way she had looked me in the eyes and chosen someone else without a second thought. For years I had built a life around her, and in one night she had burned it all to the ground. But fire doesn't just destroy, it clears the way for something new. A slow exhale left my lips as I picked up my phone. One message, just a single line. "She's gone. You can come over." Minutes passed before headlights swept across the driveway. Then a knock, firm, expectant. I opened the door, and there she was. Sophie. She hesitated for a moment, eyes scanning my face as if searching for hesitation, regret. There was none. "You sure?" she asked, voice softer than I had ever heard it. I stepped aside, letting her in. The door clicked shut behind us, sealing off the past, locking me into a future I had never considered, one where I wasn't a fool waiting for a woman who didn't love me. Her fingers trailed up my arm, tentative but filled with unspoken promises, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something real, something Amelia had never given me. Revenge wasn't always about destruction. Sometimes the best kind was simply moving on, faster, stronger, happier. And as Sophie leaned in, her lips brushing against mine, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't broken. I was free.